Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me on this microphone? Good, great. So thanks. Liz Schweigert, I lead partnerships for Oracle's government, defense, and intel. As part of that role, I'm responsible for our systems integrators, or ISVs, and our marketplace for government. That includes our US and Canada partnerships, as well as our UK government marketplace. So really excited to be here today and talk about how we're leveraging all the good things that are happening at Oracle and our AI partnerships really to speed government's advancement on AI and big data. So thank you for having us.
Thanks, Liz.
And good morning, I'm Mike Adams again. I'm our program executive for our AI solutions team. So here at Carahsoft, I help onboard new manufacturer partners onto our contracts and get them a sales team. And we do a lot of sales and marketing activities, to bring their technology to government. Essentially, that's one of the things we try and do well here at Carahsoft is educate our government customers on the technology that's available to them. We educate them on the contracts that are available that's going to help them, buy the technology quickly, and then pair them with integration and systems integrator partners that are smart on the solutions. So those are the three of the things that drive us every day, and I tell people all the time I have a lot of fun in my job because I get to work with great technology partners like SquarePeg and Oracle, and get to see some of the things that they're doing in government really take hold. So thanks again for coming today, and look forward to speaking with everybody.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, fantastic. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacques Henderson. I am the founder and CEO of SquarePeg Technologies. SquarePeg Technologies is an enterprise data solutions company. We have over 10 years of experience doing enterprise integrations in terms of analytics and AI for the federal government, in particular national security and defense. I myself came from a background of engineering with the focus on modeling and simulation and analysis. And I'm here today with our partners, Marion Square and Carahsoft, because we are systems integrators, and I, like Mike, I get to have fun on my job as well because I get to help the government integrate some of the most advanced tech tools and technologies that are best on the market for their use cases.
Thank you. Okay. So we've also got some folks online, but as Harvey had mentioned, we'd like to keep this interactive. So if you've got some questions, please let us know. We'll get you a microphone, and we'll get going. So I'd like to start this off with a few group questions for the panel here. So thinking about the perspective overall, if you could give us some of your thoughts on the government's current usage of AI and where you're seeing the most potential for opportunity and growth. Liz, you want to start with you on that?
Sure. So I think government has had a lot of the tools and capabilities from Oracle for a number of years that are integrated into our database. But as they've looked across their enterprises and the vast amounts of data, what we're really focused on is how can they do it not just at scale, but cost effectively and securely. And one of the, I think, biggest advantages for Oracle is that we are really highly competitive for price and performance in our cloud. And so a huge piece of the sort of story for government is how do you leverage infrastructure? AI and the ability to look at all of your data requires a massive commitment to infrastructure, the capabilities that are required to do AI at scale, the GPUs. And so what we've really been focused on with government is looking at where is the data and how do you start to bring AI to the data as opposed to the data to your AI. So as we've engaged with these organizations, the biggest thing that we're seeing is they have the data, they have often in Oracle is where their data is living, and we're just helping them create the story for how they get to that data with the AI solutions.
Excellent, thank you.
So this is a good time for government and AI in terms of, hey, there's a lot of opportunity out there to help the government. There's a lot of things going on in government. It's depending on what side you're on, it's chaos or good. I'm not here to be political, but the government's looking towards industry to help them solve their problems. and to solve the solutions they have. So for our technology partners, going to government and telling them about all the great use cases that you can solve, as Liz mentioned, AI infrastructure. I look at previous executive orders or the first executive order that Biden had on AI, and we talked about AI infrastructure and cybersecurity, both in AI infrastructure in both the cloud and the data center, but also the data. You have to have good, clean data to do anything AI related. You have to get your data AI ready. So that creates a lot of opportunity, and Oracle and the partners that they have, I'm seeing more than ever the opportunity for everyone to work together and to create these better together stories that are out there, and going to lead together with a solution versus, hey, here's my technology, it's very cool. So going with those use cases is a real opportunity for everyone.
So a couple of things I'm seeing. Number one is the continued focus on analytics. So the government obviously has tremendous amounts of information and data, and that need is not going away anytime soon, right? With the advent of more data being more available from commercially available sources, internally available sources. And my background in analytics, I distinctly remember it being a challenge just trying to make sense of information at scale, right? So the questions now that I'm getting from customers is, how do I make sense of this information in a way that can get me there faster, right? It's been the problem for millennia, seems like, in the federal government. But what I'm seeing now is easier ways for you to ask that information of the questions, right? I'm sure we'll probably get into NLP, into large language models, probably later on here. But what I'm seeing is a tremendous focus on, how do I now ask that information easily and get back an answer in some type of summary fashion that makes sense, to where I can shorten that haystack of data that I'm trying to get an answer towards. And the second point is, on the Liz's point, is the data, right? I think we're all focused on the data, and me being a data guy for a long time, oftentimes we get a bunch of data that didn't make sense, because you can't do AI when the data's bad. So there's a large push to not only have integration of systems, but also have fundamental changes in terms of your data management policy. And your data management strategy, because without that, none of these tools are going to work at all.
All right.
Yeah, and just to add on there, things people are doing with generative AI, if we don't have trusted results and we can't trust them, then that's not going to bode well for us for the future of us using AI. I mean, AI is here to help people be more productive. It's helped us to be safer. It's going to help us get better healthcare outcomes, prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. There's tons of use cases out there. So again, as you're saying, you got to have good data so we can trust the results, because if we have too many instances where people can point to AI did something bad, then it's going to be a big setback.
So I guess that really goes well to sort of the next question, and we're talking about data, but what do you see as the trends, is what's being adopted right now versus what's next?
So I think we're early overall for a lot of these government agencies in the AI story, but they're not dissimilar from commercial customers in terms of where they're at in the journey. The focus, I think, today is, again, back to the infrastructure. One of the reasons we've brought OCI to government and we've created a secure cloud is so that we can build the capabilities not just for today, for where they're at in the journey in terms of getting their data ready, starting to do the initial analytics, ensuring the data is good to be able to do it, but how do they integrate it long term? So things like 23AI and Oracle database is a key piece of that, because it becomes just part of your day-to-day. It doesn't have to be something you do one time and then take away a certain set of outcomes. You make it part of everything you're doing on Oracle and in our infrastructure. And so I think the journey is still early. A lot of times these agencies are figuring out how do the policies apply to them. They're looking for guidance on what are commercial best practices. We're leaning heavily on our partners to help to carry that message. We've got SIs, and CETAs and different organizations that can really bring these organizations. Some are early adopters. They've come to cloud. They're ready to go. Others are just starting that journey. So it depends where you're looking in government and the individual customers, but there is a lot of excitement. There's obviously been executive orders and mandates to get to AI, to think about how the government can really, keep up with industry and commercial and our adversaries, quite frankly. So I think it depends where you're looking, but we're seeing great advancements across the DoD, the intelligence community, and really thinking about how they do it, not just at a moment in time as a project on the side, but how it becomes part of their day-to-day works.
I think what I'm seeing from our customers is an increased focus on, in terms of AI, it's a lot on summarization, right? Being able to summarize tons of information, and again, making it easier for, if I'm an Army sergeant and my task is to analyze the weather for the next 10 months, I shouldn't have to go to a bunch of weather channels and figure it out, right? You should be able to have some type of summary to where you come in that morning and you ask it a question and it gives you a summary of that information. And that way, that Army sergeant now, he can free up his capacity to do other things. So those are hard. I mean, I obviously exaggerated the story about the weather, but when you apply that towards defense and intelligence challenges that the government is coming up with, or has to face, there's always that underpinning of how can I use AI to make that process easier. And I'm already seeing to where that Army sergeant, he doesn't even care if it's AI. He just wants it to work. And some of the underpinnings of what that's starting to shift towards in the government is, I don't care how it's giving me the information. I turn on the lights and it just works. AI is electricity, and I want my electricity to work so I can help figure out what's going on in the weather.
You brought up a really good point that I think kind of amplifies that. They're doing it at the organizational levels as well. So they're focused on things like their HR and their HCM solutions and how they can get efficiencies and everything from payroll to the day-to-day mission. And so we're definitely seeing AI, change things like fraud, waste, and abuse. Are they paying invoices, in a timely fashion and not twice? There's, I think, a lot of AI use cases, not just in the day-to-day of mission, but also in how they do business. Doing things, with AI to ensure that we understand where all of our assets and troops are. So that we really are prepared for whatever the next crisis is, that we're looking at the data that we've historically held. That could be everything from health information on our troops, to be able to really maximize the efficiency, and in an austere environment. I think all of us are aware of the requirements of today's administration and DOGE to really look at where can I gain efficiencies. Where can I cut down on any redundancy and really gain efficiencies? I think that's the push today as well.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And the new administration, made it very clear, generative AI and productivity, and then defense. That's the two big areas. And I'm a big fan of AI for weather and what it can do there, and AI in healthcare. But yeah, it's more than just us being able to predict the weather, so I know what to wear in 4 days versus I have to look out just one day.
Weather guys are usually wrong, by the way.
Makes packing easier as well.
It's so they can have the golf course all to themselves, as they say. But yeah, weather's important to defense too, and you can't. Depending on the weather, certain things can move, long distances and stuff. So, yeah, it's very, very important, like all the different use cases. And generative AI is, it's here to stay.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I think it brings up more and more use cases the more we talk. I think supply chain is another area we're seeing really great use of AI. We're doing a lot on digital twins, and starting to create efficiencies in the way we bring our capabilities to defense. So it's a really exciting time overall.
Excellent. So thinking then about also what might be the bigger hurdles, like we mentioned data a little bit, and maybe some legacy, or we've hinted at some legacy sort of systems, but what would be, in your eyes, the biggest sort of hurdle, if you will, to starting this or implementing these in production, so to speak?
Yeah, so from our perspective, I think the biggest thing we are concerned about is security, especially for our government use cases and for our government missions. You can't get it wrong. You really have to be able to protect the data and protect it in a way that you're ensured that you have AI outcomes that are accurate and you're basing your decisions ultimately on the right data. So for Oracle, there's a lot of, I think, security built into our cloud. We are, I believe, the first cloud service provider in the IC to receive continuous evaluation for our cloud based on its security, which is a huge thing. But, database security, secure posture management, all of the capabilities that Oracle builds in to our cloud and to our database, I think are key, so that when the government's using AI, they're confident that what the outcome of that exercise is not been tampered with, has not had any outside influence into it. So security, I think, is probably the biggest hurdle to being trusted and being able to really do AI. But Oracle's, I think, bringing a lot of the key solutions, and we're really viewed as a strong cloud service provider because of how much we've built in.
I agreed on security, and the Executive Order 1410 outlined a couple pillars on what they were asking the government to do. It was update, and I mentioned this previously, update their AI infrastructure in the cloud and the data center, get your security right, upskill the workforce, bring in the right talent that can do AI things, get your data AI ready. Those are some of the inhibitors, I think, to some of these agencies. Implementing it at scale is modernizing everything, making that investment in GPUs and storage and getting your data right, bringing on the right talent. There's a whole lot of great talented people in government today. AI is a new thing, and so working with partners is going to be increasingly important. So, those are some of the things I look at as, the opportunities for us, where there might be some impediments today. Those can be opportunities for partners.
I'm going to take a slightly different angle, and for me, I think some of the biggest impediment I've seen when we try to integrate something brand new is back to my Army sergeant. We'll call him Sergeant Johnson. Sergeant Johnson has a way of doing business. Every single day, this is how he's done it. And when I come and I introduce an entirely new workflow for Sergeant Johnson, he's too busy. I don't have time to learn a new tool. This is going to take too long. I need my weather, but you want me to go do this whole brand new thing. So in summary, the biggest challenges that I've seen, it really is an integration and change management. How do you now embed small pieces of that new process to where Sergeant Johnson can do his job? And starting from there, looking at adoption, and that's the only way we can really start to get AI to be ingrained and back to the light switch. Sergeant John, he just wants it to work when he comes in. He doesn't want to have to change everything.
Fair.
So it's the change, is what you're saying, just
the things that have always,
something
I think,
new.
I think that's always government, right? They want to think about things in the way they've done them, and they want to oftentimes have, an easy way to procure, to get to AI. I know we're going to talk a little bit about marketplace and other mechanisms, but I think it really is about how do you integrate into how they do work today and make it accessible. So that's a key piece.
Excellent. Okay. So, yeah.
So while we're on the topic of security, I'd actually love to get your thoughts on AI, agentic AI, as it relates to zero trust.
That's a tough one. So we're just starting to explore agentic AI. So we're looking at a possible solution with Salesforce. So we're partnering with Salesforce. Salesforce has Agentforce, right? And for us, that initial exploration, we're changing course a little bit in terms of our customer base, right? Because our customer base is traditional defense, national security. Instead, what we're doing now with Salesforce is now we're looking at how do we now introduce AI agents at the state and local level. because of the exact point that you mentioned, because of security. Because our customers, when you integrate an AI agent, that AI agent now, you're giving it almost autonomy to go out and reach to external sources. And if it's pulling back information from lots of different external sources, then my existing customer base, it really does break down that relationship, that philosophy of zero trust architecture. Then any source that you map for that AI agent, you really have to have your zero trust architecture principles and your governance and how you pull back information. It needs to be ironclad, but at the same time, it may limit what you can do with that AI agent. Then when you have your AI agents, they may be a little more narrowly focused than what you would anticipate. So I don't have an answer yet, but give me 6 or 7 months and I'll have something else for you.
So then, not just at the, agentic level, but broadly, are you seeing more of an appetite for emerging tech and some of the cutting edge stuff at the SLG level?
100%. They want the same thing, right? Obviously, their budget cycles are a little different. It's not the same as, obviously not the same as defense, but they want the same too. And I think another challenge that we didn't talk about was setting expectations as well, because obviously AI is a big buzz, and how do you now start to go with your customers and you have these use cases and you try to keep them tightly bounded, right? Tightly bounded, and also have that in the back of your mind. This is AI. You want to think big. You want to think that it can do all these different things, but how do you set those expectations for what they have for their budget? Because it takes time to integrate. For example, we're working on a case now with large language models, integrating it into an intelligence lifecycle. And it's taken a long time because there's a lot of learning that's still going on in that side of the exploration of AI. It doesn't all work easily. And you have to have customers that are ready to have the mindset of exploration. This isn't just a one and done, you set it and go. No, this is a mindset of exploration and learning and growing and building. And it changes at the state and local level because the budgets are just different.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your root question, we're definitely seeing the demand for innovation. We're seeing things like integration of, chatbot like AI agents in workflows, everything from how do I write a contract and keep it consistent so that I'm procuring in a different way and more quickly. But I agree, I think the policy has to catch up. Oftentimes, these organizations aren't even sure which policies apply to which use cases. And so what we're doing is we're bringing in partners that can help them really make sense of that so that they're then freed up to drive to that innovation.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
Sure. We work with a lot of different partners, obviously, and from what I'm seeing, state and local level, higher education, they're definitely doing AI things, a little bit different. And as Jacques said, the budget cycles, the budgets are different, but the states have healthcare problems they're trying to solve. They've got issues with fraud, waste, and abuse that they're trying to solve. I see one of my vendors has a big use case with the state of Minnesota for language translation services. State and local governments are doing a lot, and they've got some really smart people. And some of those states, they do have significant budgets for AI, but yeah, definitely different than the federal level.
One of my favorite partner stories recently that you just kind of brought to mind was actually for tribal health. We had an organization who was looking to make sure they could make sense of old records in their tribal language. And one of our partners, Cohere, who actually specializes in ensuring their models have significant language capability, they came and said, well, we'd love to use you, but I'm sure you don't have our language. It's very niche. There's only a couple hundred people in our tribe who still have full knowledge of the language. And they said, well, let us look. And we actually did. We had it in Cohere. And they were amazed. He said, this is going to save me so much time looking at these old records and being able to integrate them to understand our tribal health. So I think there are innovation stories like that all of the time. And it really relies on, are we thinking about AI not just for AI's purpose, but for who it's serving, for the communities it's really supposed to meet.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Ooh. There's a mic right behind you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Ari Tapper. I'm with Data Robot. One of the biggest challenges that I keep hearing, and we saw all these applications that agencies have put together, but a lot of them go to development and they stop there. And the reason that we're getting for them stopping at development and not being put into production is that the AI agents go out and get a bunch of information, and let's say they go to 3 sources. Me as an individual, I may have access to one data source. Somebody else may have access to another data source, and all that's fine. But when you put those 3 sources together, now I've got sensitive information. And that's one of the biggest challenges they're worried about. How do you see being able to address this kind of situation so that AI can move forward and move from development into production?
Obviously newer field, but access controls is going to be incredibly important at that point. So if you're approaching different pieces of information and together it makes a piece of classified information or even just CUI information, something that's controlled, right? Then how do you access control it? Right? I think it becomes even more important. I don't know if Oracle has the ability to maybe help in situations like that, but that's where
We
the
do.
security and access controls are going to be even more important. Even policy as well too. Who now can search this type of use case or this type of an example?
Yeah, so we absolutely do. I think, services like Oracle Cloud Guard, who come in and do security posture management, things like, our database security and Oracle Data Safe, all of those things ensure that the data is staying in the right lanes. We've obviously got things like key control, et cetera, and in the regions, where it needs to be, if it's secret, top secret, IL 4 or 5, we're working to ensure that the security parameters are there so that you can control the access. You can ensure it's taking the data you want it to, and that it's also ensuring who sees that data. So a lot of the capabilities, yes, Oracle is definitely at the forefront of providing them, and the use case you've talked about is exactly that. We've invested heavily in that security and ensuring our AI capabilities in our secure clouds at those qualification levels protects the data and allows them to move beyond just the development, as you've talked about, and really have security that as they move it into the regions they need to have it in and access it, it's available. I also think you brought up another interesting thought for me, and that's really around how do you do it where the data is, for example, at the edge, right? Oracle spent a lot around roving edge capabilities. We've integrated NVIDIA GPUs into our roving edge or a Red device 2.0 so that you can actually go to where the data is as well, so that you're not having to add a lot of time and life cycle to get the data to where the AI is, but again, bring the AI to the data. So I think all of those capabilities are front of mind to ensure that customers can do it securely.
One more thought. And as AI agents continue to evolve, right? I'm thinking when you're designing your agent, your workflow, your predicted outcome, et cetera, there could be a possibility to where AI agents, they'll become smarter over time. What if it later notifies you, hey, I actually don't have access to this information. This is where the human in the loop has to remain in the loop, right? Obviously, AI is great, but there's always going to have to be a human in the loop. And in this situation, maybe that's the case to where then that AI agent comes back and tells you, I actually need your help now.
Yeah, that's another, I think, core tenet of AI. You always need a human in the loop. If you have an organization or somebody who's trying to tell you that they never have hallucinations, you absolutely know they're lying, and you can stop the conversation there, right? The data is not ever going to be entirely perfect, and so you do always want to make sure you've got that piece.
Fantastic. I think we had an online question.
Yeah, this is a question from the online chat from Eddie Knoll. He said, the use of AI in government presents significant risks to data security, particularly with open source models like ChatGPT and, more critically, Chinese AI models such as DeepSeek. One major concern is the potential for government employees to use these tools as a shortcut when their agencies lack in-house AI solutions, inadvertently exposing sensitive data. Are there systems currently under development to mitigate these risks and ensure secure AI usage within government operations?
I think they used ChatGPT to come up with that question.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I mean, it's definitely there's going to be security issues with using any tool. I think that industry is taking great. They're investing significantly in making sure that what they're building isn't going to turn into something that's bad. But again, there's inherently going to be risks with anything you're doing. But I would say that a lot of these companies and even ChatGPT, they're coming out with products and they're working with partners to make sure that they've got a secure software for government to use. So I think people are making strides every day.
Yeah, and I think we're partnering with government. So we know how commercial industry does it and how they protect critical data. That can be everything from banking transactions and highly protected and regulated data into the government space. So agreed. I think a lot of it is around policy and good governance to ensure that you don't have somebody taking data out to ChatGPT. That is something that I think has been part of how do you not have people Googling things, right? That's not a new question. But taking highly sensitive data into the wrong systems. But I think also what we're trying to do is partner with government and think through those use cases and questions. So, Oracle's engaged with CDAO on a number of initiatives, Task Force Lima, other things like that, to really be in a mind share and in a true partnership around how technology can really inform government and vice versa, how they can inform what we're ensuring is built into our services.
I think one thing I'm seeing is obviously it's on your point, the huge focus on policy initially. Right? Policy is only going to go so far, especially when you're trying to do your job and you're trying to get a fast answer and you need something quick. ChatGPT is right there, right? But what I'm seeing with our customers is now a move towards how do you now have a smaller ChatGPT that's on your enclave of data, right? How do you now have that? Because on your point, law firms are already doing things around this, the same thing. Healthcare as well, right? And all these large language models, they should be domain specific to where you want a particular area that's smart on your data, but then reaches back for only certain pieces of information. So I'm seeing that with our customers now, moving towards how do we have our own small piece of ChatGPT. The challenge I've seen there is your data is just going to be slightly behind because you just need time to train it. But hopefully, to answer your question, there's a move towards everyone having their own ChatGPT, or at least your own piece of information that touches only pieces of the web, and when it does touch the World Wide Web, it only needs to do so for a short period of time just to learn, come back and pull back that information, and then it's done.
Okay, thank you.
Do you foresee the possibility with the new administration a more flexible data security policy that comes, ratchets a little bit of the security policy back to something that's more commercial business level versus what we've been moving towards with FedRAMP and other security data policies?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to speculate on this administration and what they might do. But I think that what you will see is continued evolution of our security policies. And I think in certain areas, you're going to actually see tightening. And in other areas, you're going to see that we maybe are able to, as we advance, look at how we relax policy and create more. I do think there is an emphasis today, and I think it's actually spanned the previous and the current administration, to do better in aligning government to what commercial industry is doing. I think that's exactly why you've seen contracts like the intelligence community and the defense community's contracts to bring cloud. They realize that it's not efficient for them each to build their own on-prem data centers or clouds. They really know that they need to leverage technology and American companies like Oracle that can really provide them the capabilities. So I think you'll continue to see calibration of policy towards commercial use case and how the government can really align with best in class on commercial.
I echo your thoughts, Liz. It's hard to say what the administration will move towards, but me personally, it's hard to say that rolling back security measures it will be advantageous towards us, just because there's so many different ways of which our adversaries are looking to get a hold of our information, looking to influence our people. So I think there will be, on her point, there will be an evolution, obviously, in terms of security, but as far as rolling it back, I don't see it at the moment. I just don't. It's tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely tricky to anticipate what happens. I think, with the repeal of 1410 and some of the things around defense and taking some of the onus off of you can't put all of the onus on industry, but I think industry and government working together is going to be good. To answer your question, I think I don't want to say less security, because I don't think that anyone wants something to be less secure, but I think it'll be, and I don't want to just come out and say that it's going to be, as a general statement, it's going to be easier for industry, but it looks like it'll be a little bit more flexible for industry.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
I had a comment that it seems like that would be a perfect use for AI to try and predict what this administration is going to do, because I'm pretty sure that they're using AI to try and decide what they're going to do.
Yes, and they've mentioned they want people using AI. I mean, again, like previous executive order, everyone needs to be implementing AI, and that's where let's get our use case inventory and let's see what people could use it for today. What's easy, what's hard, what's safe, what's not as sensitive. So they're certainly, I think they're using it AI to do these things. They need to. That's for sure.
I think that's a good question, too, in terms of security. If we're not anticipating rolling back security measures, how can we now use technology, too, to empower us to fortify our security measures? And maybe that's a question to what we'll get towards, a part of that evolution, but I could see us starting to use technology more. And we already are starting to do that, right? Starting with zero trust and then starting with just authentication and verification at different levels of using technology to do it, to where it's smarter, to where it's not as manual. So so moving forward, I do think the opportunity will be there for leveraging technology, but as far as dialing it back initially, again the challenge.
Okay. All right. Unless there's any other questions, I think we can move on more to the individual questions for y'all. And I'm going to start with one for Liz and Oracle. So thinking about the process for an AI vendor to get on board with their solution, on board with the OCI cloud. What could you explain sort of how that works for anybody out here who might be interested in that?
Yeah, so I obviously go back to my introduction. I'm responsible for partnerships, systems integrators. That's everything from our SIs and our tech partnerships. We've got significant partnerships with folks like NVIDIA, Palantir, and we're excited to leverage those partnerships. So we've really put a lot of effort as Oracle into how do we make that an easier process? How do we ensure that we're partnering with the right organizations to really bring that innovation to government? One of the major things we've done is we've done a review of our Oracle Partner Network programs to ensure that our partners have access to the best training resources and that we are making it easy to come to market with Oracle. And then we're bringing a marketplace for our government customers. So our commercial marketplace is robust. We offer, all sorts of services from security, which we spent a lot of time discussing today, to things like AI tools and models that you can come to our marketplace and run on your OCI cloud instance. So, the place to start is really with that Oracle Partner Network. Some of the folks from my team who run the marketplace are here today. If folks in the audience have questions about how to do these things with Oracle, I'd love to get you connected. But I think the main focus is on how do we create the button for the government to have, you want to run that very niche, unique AI tool on Oracle. Great. We want to make that something that's easy for government to do in a one-stop shop sort of procurement via our marketplace. So that's really, I think, the key foundational piece. And today we've got that available at FedRAMP High. We've got it available in our commercial regions, in our government unclassified, and we're bringing it, as I said previously, to our top secret and secret cloud, as well as IL 5.6. So really excited to bring those capabilities to bear.
So I guess just a follow-up, would it be better to contact you first or to be more in partnership with Carahsoft, get on a schedule, and then get into your marketplace?
So it's a both. I think we work really closely with Carahsoft and our other partners. They're certainly going to make sure that they're bringing you to Oracle and that we have pathways. And then you can certainly come directly to me and my team. We are heavily engaged. That's why we're happy to be part of events like today. And, we'll be attending conferences. We have our Oracle Fed Forum coming up in Washington, D.C. on April 15th, which is a day that hopefully is easy for most folks to remember. And so, we have opportunities to engage with us. Oracle Cloud World and our Cloud World tours, we're available there. So, my team is really accessible. You can, hit up our websites. You can come to the Oracle Marketplace online. But there are a lot of avenues to get to Oracle and our marketplace, and we're excited to work with, the ISVs and the innovators in the space.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. So thinking a little bit more, what specific security features does OCI provide to support the AI workloads in the government?
Yeah, so I think we've talked a little bit about some of them, our database security, our security posture management, our monitoring resources, things like CloudGuard, everything, around OCI data science and our Oracle machine learning tools. They're integrated. Oracle has actually had AI capabilities in our database for several years, right? Just built in. When you get an Oracle database, they're there. It's not something you have to go add or select into. It's part of your baseline capabilities with Oracle. Now we've improved that and we're integrating things like 23AI. We're doing, I think some of the most innovative work to bring NVIDIA GPUs to government in everything from our cloud to our edge capabilities. So security is really front of mind. It's built into everything we do. It's in our DNA. We've been partnered with government for over 47 years. So we really intimately understand the mission of government and the security use case. So, it's not just something we apply later or bolt on. It's in our DNA. It's in every piece of what Oracle does.
So thinking about sort of running on OCI, running a system on OCI, what are some of the key advantages to running an AI model in OCI?
Yeah, so key differentiators for us are going to be the price. Oracle's cloud is generally about 40 to 60% less than our cloud service provider competition in the government space. We were a little bit later to cloud, but we did what we really believe is a better cloud. It's focused on our networking. Our infrastructure is built to really have the capacity and the performance for cloud. And so we are differentiated, and we can get into we can nerd out on the details of that. I won't bother everybody here with that, but the NVIDIA GPU capabilities, access to the chips, it's a key piece for government. Oftentimes what they're looking to do, if it's HPC, we've got quals that show that we are significantly more performant than a lot of our competition at half the cost. So it's really about the infrastructure, our networking, and the things that are differentiated in the way we've brought cloud to government.
Excellent. Any follow-up questions for Liz? No? Okay. Let me switch over to Jaquay. So, Jaquay, from a square peg perspective, working with different agencies, what's the best way to integrate AI into existing sort of security policies and protocols?
So in terms of integration, for me, it is starting with the use case, right? Starting with the use case, identifying the proper use case, and having the right technology that you can honestly easily explain to the customer. Oftentimes, we're a systems integrator, and I've had the privilege of interfacing with different tools and technologies, but when it comes to the government and being able to speak some of their government language and having clearly defined use cases mapped to their objectives and challenges, I think that's number one. So on the security side, which is completely different, that's where having your boots on the ground is important, right? People that actually understand that, right? The expertise to understand the different levers, the levers to turn, the different people to reach out to, because security is obviously very complex. Each government agency has their way of doing things. So our perspective is making sure that we understand how that government security policies and their procedures and how they function operate.
Do you feel that agencies are more interested in sort of the AI augmentation or actual full automation from a tool perspective and implementing it?
I'd say both. Right?
Yeah.
They want everything. Right? They want everything, and they want it now. But again, back to my point in terms of setting expectations, because oftentimes I get a customer that wants AI, but really they just need more analytics to understand what's happening in their organization. So setting a roadmap or a pathway towards AI and automation, I think, is number one. That way you're setting those expectations. You're being realistic about your timeline. You're being realistic about your budget. That way you actually know what you're going to get at every single phase.
Earlier, you mentioned sort of ML learning models and that as an approach to implementing successful AI. What do you feel, including that, would be the best strategy for implementing AI in a government agency?
I'd say back to the use case, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but it is the number one thing, because every tool is not going to work for every government agency, right? Every tool is not going to work broadly across every different directorate or different office or department. Different tools with different features have different strengths and different weaknesses. And what we've done is we take a very disciplined approach in terms of how we evaluate tools and how we integrate them, or even how we get them in front of our customers, because sometimes you only get one shot in front of the government. You get one shot, and if you blow it, then it's back to the queue. So being disciplined in terms of how you present yourself with those use cases, doing all that capture and BD, all those things up front before you get in front of the customers, it's number one for us. And because then your tools really get the chance to showcase itself, right? And approaching it with the air of not expertise, but more so curiosity for your customers. And that way, because that's what we want to position them towards, right? Not necessarily machine learning expertise. They don't necessarily need to know that, right? They want to know that it works, and they want to be curious, and we want to be curious in terms of how we can work together to solve the problem.
Okay. Any questions for Jaquay? No? All right. I'm going to switch to Mike then. So with all the AI companies in the space and trying to get into sort of the federal market, what separates a successful AI company from folks that aren't?
Sure. So successful companies that we've seen, it's really the dedication and investment in public sector, understanding the landscape, building out a team, and then when it comes to the product, as we're talking about use cases, picking a use case or two at the very least that you can solve. Again, when you're meeting with chief AI officers or CIOs, they love hearing about how great your platform is, but they would prefer that you come in with an understanding of what their problem is, and the things that they're dealing with, and talking about how, your solution can, is a fit for their use case. Right now more than ever, talking about the value you bring is very important. Everyone's looking at, the software licenses, the hardware they have, and are they getting their money's worth? So really presenting that value. And then another thing I would say to companies that are successful, a little bit of, especially ones that are just entering, a little bit of patience. It does take some time. You've got to do the brand awareness stuff. You've got to do the thought leadership and the tactical, marketing, but the networking. So it's all important. But yeah, successful companies, those are just a couple things that we're seeing that they're doing. And then also the partnerships, creating, if you can, reference architectures with other, software companies, and really building out solutions. And hey, this is how how a government customer can leverage their current investment to make it even better. So if you have those stories, that works too.
I mean, you have a unique position getting vendors and partnering with government to sort of solve solutions for them. If you had one, I know there's a lot of things to do, but one focus area, and with folks limited sort of time and resources, what would you suggest to them they should be investing in, most specifically, to try and get in to a government agency?
Sure. So again, I think it's developing those use cases, because if even if you have one that's really strong and solid, I mean, that's gonna open doors. I mean, that's gonna be the most worthwhile time for the customer to, if you're talking to them. But I would say, yeah, investing in that one use case that I think you can solve versus, again, you have to have a great product, and hopefully it can be applied to many different things. But there's plenty of companies out there that do one thing or solve one type of problem. Now, sure, that there can be some disadvantages there, but if you're talking to government customers, focus on at least one use case.
Can I just add one thing there?
Absolutely.
I think it's also about showing commitment. One of the things we oftentimes see is that, the government is used to, an industry sector that they've worked with a long time, who understand their mission. And so if you're new in the space, if you're a new company and you're interested in working with government, it comes down to the time and the patience, but it's also a commitment that you can demonstrate to the government that you are in it for the long haul, that you're really, there with them through the journey, because they don't see AI as a moment in time. They see this as fundamentally changing the way they're doing business long term. So I think, demonstrating that commitment as a company to the government mission, it is a critical piece of that story too.
Yeah, I'd say, not calling out any of my partners, but if you're in the cloud, you're a SaaS product, are you going through the FedRAMP? Is that important to you? Are you making that investment? Because that is a commitment, and that, for some agencies, that's a showstopper if you're, you haven't gone through the process and you're not authorized.
I'd like to add one thing as well. So vendors trying to get into the space, I've seen or worked with vendors that are based in California or maybe based in Boston or New York, and that cultural difference between delivering to your commercial customers versus the government customers it's huge. And I think preparing yourself for that, it takes time and commitment, even when you don't see the day of light, preparing for that ambiguity, preparing for that executive order, or preparing for just the security roadblocks associated with the government. They are huge things or huge barriers that I've seen different companies, they've really struggled with it in terms of trying to work with the federal government.
Yeah, the security posture thing, I think, is a big piece of that. Having patience for things like ATO timelines, what it takes to actually bring your service into government, and having realistic expectations up front about what that looks like is critical. FOCI, DD-254s, all of it, right? And just, I think, having that realistic, we do what we can as a partner to ensure that you're submitting the right information the first time, so that it, can streamline that. You don't go back to the bottom of the queue, but somebody's pile on their desk. But I do think that is a demonstrated thing. Partners who are successful ultimately understand that there's a very specific and unique culture around working with government and those requirements.
Hi. Is this thing on? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Frame. I'm with InnoData. And I really liked the question about the zero trust architecture from the lady in the front. And I'm new to public sector. I'm new to Marion Square and also new to Carahsoft. So one of the things that we do is red teaming generative AI models. And I'm kind of taking that away as, can our red teaming teams provide security and safety for zero trust architecture for government agencies to deploy generative AI? Is that possible? Because the way that you get to a point of confidence is knowing that you've tested the models for risk and bias and hallucinations, which I love that comment, by the way, Liz, about if your model, you say your model doesn't hallucinate, you're probably lying. Because that's what we do is getting models to hallucinate, but haven't done it yet for government agencies. So I think about that, and I wonder about zero trust is really zero trust, and it's a generative model. But if you test it enough to generate, and then you can trust what it is generating, then it should potentially be compliant with zero trust architecture from the little that I know about it. So I just wanted to get your thoughts with regard to that, because you guys have a lot more experience in the public sector than I do.
So I can give initial thoughts on that. I think it's an important piece. I think you also have to understand that any red teaming you do, the government's going to want to do their own. And so I think it's an important part of the story for whatever you're bringing, that you can say, we've put this through the rigors and we feel confident. I think it's a confidence story. But it ultimately comes back to that patience and understanding the culture of government. They're trust but verify, right, is I think the quote. And so they're going to maybe trust that you've done that, but they're going to do it themselves. And so it's just having an understanding that isn't a personal attack on your processes, but it's really about having that awareness of how they function and the trust they put in it. And ultimately, I think it's an important piece of the story. Because we all are, taxpayers and citizens. We want to make sure that the data is actually secure and that it has gone through multiple layers of that. So.
Do we have any questions online that we want to tackle? We're good? Okay. Oh, one more.
Hi, my name is Ola. I work for Transcend. We help government and other agencies optimize decision speed and quality to end violent conflicts and advance peace. My question is about what kind of opportunities exist outside of the Department of Defense, perhaps in the Department of State and other entities that you might have partnerships with who are looking to use diplomacy and other means to do exactly what Transcend does. What on-ramps do you have access to outside of the DoD?
Yeah, so we're certainly not just in the DoD. Oracle partners with state, our federal civilian partners, state and local, organizations kind of across the spectrum. And I would say a lot of the mechanisms are the same. Our marketplace and our government capabilities are available to our Department of State colleagues. Oracle does a lot around everything from, Department of Homeland Security, CBP, FEMA. All of these organizations they have significant amounts of data. And so the capabilities and the core, offerings that Oracle brings, it's not just tailored to the Department of Defense or the intelligence community or our federal civilian customers. We're thinking about whole of government. And things like the marketplace, again, are accessible to all of those government customers. So I think, government is kind of the catch-all, but it could be state and local. As I mentioned earlier, we work with Canadian federal customers. So I have Canadian partnerships. It's really broad. So if organizations are interested, I would say the marketplace is the place to start for us if you're a software vendor. But it doesn't necessarily just have to be the U.S. Department of Defense.
Yeah, and there's other types of contracts too. Federal government, they use GSA, SOUP, but state and local has all sorts of contracts from NASPO to different individual state contracts like VITA or Maryland COTS. Tons of different vehicles out there so you can sell something to the government as far as the use case applicability between Department of Defense or state and local level. There's certainly some big fusion centers, and I think what NYPD is one of the biggest budgets for counterterrorism and that sort of thing. So there's certainly some applicability, but there's lots of contracts in state and local that are available for you.
And I think as a company, SquarePeg, we started in the intelligence community, continued to do work in the Department of Defense. And after 11 years in business, now we're starting to open the aperture to other government markets, because the tools and techniques that we've developed over this time, they actually are applicable to large pieces of the government and also private sector. So our approach is now looking at what's the government buying, right? There's tons of different resources out there, maybe even checking with Carahsoft to figure out what's the government buying, and are they buying what you're selling? And starting from there, because there is a government, because the government is massive, right? So there's someone out there that will buy your stuff. It's just starting to do that market research to find out where your solutions match up with what the government need is.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Did you have something you want to say?
No, I just want to thank Marion Square and Carahsoft for hosting us today and everybody's participation. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We appreciate you all for joining us today.